All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we are stepping right into the pressure cooker that was Roman Judea. You've got this world of ambitious royals, incredibly passionate crowds, and a powerful occupying force. And it's all laid out for us by the historian Josephus. So let's start to piece together how this really fragile piece began to shatter.
Okay, so to make any sense of this drama, you first have to know who's who. This is our cast of characters. On one side, you've got the heirs of Herod the Great, and they're all scrambling for a piece of his fractured kingdom. But let's be real, the true power, that lies with Rome. We're talking about the emperors and their hand-picked governors, the procurators, like the one and only Pontius Pilate. Seriously, these relationships are the key to the whole story, so it's worth taking a second to see how everyone fits together, because it's going to be central to everything that happens next.
So here's our game plan for digging into this. First, we'll look at this land that's been all divided up. Then we're going to zoom in on the Roman governor, Pilate, and his, let's just say, provocative actions. After that, we're shifting gears to a real Game of Thrones happening in Rome. And finally, we'll see what happens when it all blows up.
All right, so let's set the scene. Back in Rome, the Emperor Augustus is gone, and Tiberius is now in charge. And over in Judea, Herod the Great's once unified kingdom, it's been shattered into pieces. One of his sons, Archelaus, has already been kicked out, and his territory is now an official Roman province. The other two sons, Antipas and Philip, they get to rule their own little chunks of land as tetrarchs, which basically means they're puppet rulers for Rome. Sure, they're building fancy new cities and all that, but don't get it twisted. Rome holds all the cards here. Their authority is absolute.
So, into this already tense situation walks a new guy, a real disruptive force, Pontius Pilate. Tiberius sends him to be the governor of Judea, and let me tell you, his time in charge was, well, it was anything but quiet.
So, Pilate's first big move, it was a massive provocation. See, local religious law strictly forbade having graven images in the holy city of Jerusalem. And what does he do? Under the cover of darkness, he secretly marches Roman military standards, which have the emperor's image all over them, right into the city. This sets off an unbelievable chain reaction. But what happened next wasn't a violent riot. It was this incredible act of mass civil disobedience. And when Pilate finally corners the protesters with armed soldiers and threatens to kill them all, their response, well, it was something he absolutely did not see coming.
And this is where the power of the moment just hits you. They actually cried out that they were ready to be killed right then and there rather than see their law broken. They literally bared their necks to the soldiers. Pilate was completely stunned. Josephus says he was amazed at what he called their prodigious superstition. Basically, he couldn't believe how deeply they held their faith. He had totally miscalculated. He had to back down. He ordered the standards taken out of Jerusalem.
But if you think that was the end of it, you'd be wrong. The peace didn't last long at all. Pilate's next big idea, a new aqueduct, was about to light another fuse. Why? Because he decided to pay for it by taking money directly from the sacred temple treasury, a fund known as Corban.
This time, though, Pilate wasn't going to be caught off guard. He was ready. In fact, he set a trap. He had his soldiers dress up in plain clothes and mix into the protesting crowd. Then, on his signal, they just attacked. No swords, just clubs and staves. It was a brutal, violent response. You can see the shift, right? This wasn't a standoff anymore. This was straight-up violent suppression. The protest was crushed, and so many people died, not just from the beatings, but from being trampled to death in the sheer panic.
Okay, so while all this is simmering and boiling over in Judea, let's switch scenes. We're going from the streets of Jerusalem to the halls of power in Rome. Because at the very same time, another member of Herod's family is playing a completely different kind of game.
So this is Agrippa, Herod the Great's grandson, and this guy is a gambler. He puts all his chips on a friendship with a guy named Caius, who you might know as Caligula, the man most likely to be the next emperor. It was a huge risk that nearly got him killed. He just casually wished out loud that his buddy Caius would become emperor soon, and someone tattled to the current emperor, Tiberius. While Tiberius was not amused, he threw Agrippa in prison. But then, just like in a movie, fate steps in. Tiberius dies. Caius becomes the new emperor. In his first act, he frees Agrippa. But he doesn't just free him, he makes him a king.
Just think about the contrast here. It's incredible. On one hand, you've got his uncle, Herod Antipas, who's been this cautious, steady tetrarch for decades. And on the other hand, you have his nephew, Agrippa, who basically went from a prison cell to a throne in the blink of an eye. You can just imagine the shock. This sudden reversal of fortune, a nephew now outranking his own uncle, well, it sparks some serious jealousy, especially from Antipas's very ambitious wife, Herodias.
So pushed by his wife, Herod Antipas decides he wants a crown too. He sails off to Rome to ask the Emperor Caius for one. This was a huge mistake. His nephew, Agrippa, who was a master at playing the political game in Rome, followed him right there, and in front of the emperor, Agrippa lays out all these accusations against his uncle. And who do you think Caius believed? His old friend Agrippa. So, Herod Antipas's big trip to get a crown ended with him being banished to Spain, and the final insult? His entire territory was just handed over to Agrippa to add to his new kingdom.
So you see what's happening here, right? We've got these two parallel stories. You've got this brutal oppression happening on the ground in Judea, and at the exact same time, you've got all this self-serving family drama playing out in Rome. These two things aren't happening in a vacuum. They are on a collision course, and they're creating a super unstable, super dangerous situation for everyone else.
And really, what it all comes down to is this. These forces combined to create an absolute powder keg. On one side, you have a Roman governor, like Pilate, who just shows total contempt for local traditions. And on the other, you have the local leaders, the Herodian family, who are so wrapped up in their own power games they can't see the bigger picture. It's this toxic mix that just completely destroys any stability and plants these deep seeds of resentment. Seeds that, not too far down the road, are going to explode into a full-blown rebellion against Rome.
And it all leaves us with this really critical question, one that you could ask about so many points in history. When the local rulers are all busy with their own rivalries, and a global superpower is ruling with an iron fist, who's the one that really pays the price? Who truly suffers? As we've seen in this story, it's always the ordinary people who are caught in the middle. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.